Welcome to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝘃𝗀𝗀. With me, as always, is 𝗬𝘃𝗶𝗵𝗁. And with us, I don't know if it's a five-timer, but we're getting close there. 𝗣bec𝗀𝘃. Welcome back, man.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, congrats to your success that I could get here to close to 5 times. So
I like how you flip that.
it's
I
on
like
you guys.
that.
It's on you guys. Yeah.
Is that, or is it a lack of our other friends? We can't just just circling
I
back to the
didn't
well.
want to say it. I didn't want to say it. But thank you for having me again. I appreciate it, and hopefully can imbue some knowledge for your listeners.
Cool. Well, we're having a separate conversation that we'll kind of dive into. Transactions. There's been a lot of goofiness, right? I've had some of my own personal deals. You see a lot of transactions each and every month. What are some of the things you're seeing now that you weren't seeing a year ago?
Really got to keep in mind the market and how that has changed, right? So, I mean, what was good a year to 2 years ago, a lot of loose lenders with good ability to give good rates and everything, and people were jumping on that. It was kind of like shooting fish in the barrel. Now with what's happened with rates tightening up, lenders are tightening up, and a lot of uncertainty in the future. So what I'm seeing on transactions that used to be pretty smooth, you get a closing date, you'd have like 45 days out for getting a mortgage commitment. I'm seeing a lot of tightening on lender requirements. Pre-approval letters seem to not hold much merit as much anymore, which is unfortunate. And appraisals are tightening up, even on FHA-based loans. Things that will pop up for repairs on FHA-based type loans that were customary during their appraisal process seem to have widened a little bit more. So it's really like the due diligence period with lenders has gotten a lot more difficult. I'm not saying deals aren't getting done, but I think there's a lot of over-promising going on right at contract stage, and it's just becoming difficult for all parties involved.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think along those lines, lenders are a little tighter right now. Things like DSCR coming up for people in the commercial world that was never an issue 2 years ago when rates were at half of where they are now. But it's still, and you piggyback that with everything is still so competitive, right? So people are putting in offers to get the deal done and saying, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll close here. Like in reality, like that's probably not 100% true, but it's that mindset of people looking to lock it up and figure it out later.
Yeah, figure out later. Yep, that's the entrepreneur mindset right there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's what that's exactly what I'm saying, because although you're seeing that, hey, rates are going up, and that you're expecting that's kind of normalcy when people realize, hey, the days of 2 to 3% was just a blip. Reality is we are where we are, but sellers are not budging. You're not getting as much on the market and inventory, so you're still having that same competitive bids coming in, and lots of people trying to bid for limited availability of properties, and we're still kind of like there's been no norm meeting the buyer and the lender and what's being given in terms of loans nowadays and the prices.
As is one of those things that people usually go to first, or a seller tries to get you to lock into. Where are you seeing anyone get in trouble with saying, "We'll buy it as is"?
So I think people.
It doesn't mean anything, right?
Well, that's. Look, there are two ways to go about looking at it. I look at it from an attorney perspective, and then like the realities of what's everybody trying to do, right? Are you litigating, or are you trying to do a real estate transaction? So when I get an as-is contract, and you're looking at an as-is contract, technically an as-is contract is what it means. Like, you can't ask for inspection items. You can't ask for repairs. You can do a repair, and you can say, hey, or I'm sorry, you can do an inspection, and you can say, hey, I don't like what this property is, and you can walk away and terminate the contract or move forward, knowing the flaws. But what I see a lot is attorneys, and this happens even from the broker end, an attorney, they'll just say, oh, we'll put in as is, and then we'll just deal with it later. Or as Mark had alluded to earlier, like, let's just see where the cars may fall. And so reality is, under the contract, that's a default the moment you send a notice saying, hey, we know it's as is, but there's some deficiencies here. Can we get, X, Y, and Z, and we'll make the deal move forward. technically that's a default. Earnest money should be tendered to the seller because you just put the seller on notice of deficiencies and now have affected their ability to market the property in the future if this deal falls through. Now, that's from a legal end. Now, from a transactional perspective, as I was saying earlier, both parties are trying to get to a point of one party wants it, one party wants to sell it. So, you know, I like to at least get on the phone or have the brokers get on the phone like, hey, look, this came up. Do you think the seller wants to do something here, you know, to make this deal go forward? And, you know, if there's some repairs that need to be done, yeah, that can be negotiated because, again, both parties are trying to get to that end result of one party selling, one party's buying, and they want to close it, right? So, again, I would like people to understand when you put in as is, there are legal ramifications to that and to be careful when you do it.
Yep. It gets overused a lot. And we've been fortunate on the flips, a lot of the larger ones, we've been, you know, you end up with buyers before you get to the finish line. So you're almost working side by side with them. But the ones we've gone to market, and especially in, you know, a high demand environment, we've been asking if they're going to throw as is as at us, we're saying we want that escrow money to be hard then. Like just to turn it over on them and just maybe they don't even do it, but just to gauge the reaction. Because they say hell no, then it's like, all right, well, like your earnest money means nothing to me then. But if they say they will, or they'll do half of whatever. But if they're going to put something in the game, all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, they want to close. So they're only going to complain about something legit, which we're fine taking care of, and we can all get to the finish line.
What is legit? Because I've always understood as is in my way I've worked with clients or for myself is it's like, all right, I'll put as is. I'm not going to nickel and dime you. But if I go up there and the entire attic is rotted out from termites, like we're going to come back to the drawing table. Like what's your guys' thoughts on that?
So I would say from like what I was saying earlier, you know, the buyer always holds the keys if you're in attorney review to be like, I'm walking. You know, I can send the termination letter. You know, I'm more of a risk averse, so I like to have my client tell me, hey, you know, this is what came up. I do not want this property with this situation. I would say, hey, look, send the termination letter out and then maybe go back after and talk to the seller or let the seller come back to us and say, hey, you know, what happened here? Because you're not supposed to turn over the inspection report. You're not supposed to make a disclosure, right, under the as is provisions, as I was saying earlier. So, you know, for a person, what is that line, right? Like, what, you know, is there a foundation problem? Is a roof need to be replaced and is coming down? I mean, is it a health and safety issue? That's really where I look at the line for me. But like, again, it's kind of subjective. And the parties who are trying to make the deal work from a buyer's perspective is like, hey, I'm putting in X amount of dollars on this property and I may have 150,000 repairs ahead of me. I don't know, you know, that I wasn't expecting. And so
does the seller have to disclose those things? And so say I came back with that I know mold is one thing and then lead is another, but say I come back and say that it's rotted out, something's rotted out in the ceiling or the foundation came back on a report. Like, do they legally have to disclose those things on the next time?
If they have it in writing and they know about it, at that point, I look at it this way is, you know, sometimes you have sellers who really legitimately don't know. They don't know what's behind or inside the walls. They're not ripping it out and open. But some sellers might. But it's really hard for you to prove on a buyer end unless you got some kind of document indicating, hey, they knew about this, right? There was an inspection report. There's a letter from an attorney saying, hey, we did an inspection of your property. And now you're on notice. And now if somebody comes later down the road, let's say that transaction that you're bringing up as a deal falls through, etc. Now the seller has this document and it's on the seller to go on to the next contract when they're like, hey, you know, did you have any mold or water intrusion issues? And they know, right? And it's on them if they're just trying to not disclose that.
So that's a risk you could use as a buyer, the leverage of, hey, man, you're going to have to disclose this. But at the same time, the seller can use that. I mean, how risk averse
they are.
Careful. I mean, borderline illegal,
careful.
Basically, if you're not disclosing it.
No, but be careful. On an as-is deal, though, if you as the buyer cannot disclose that to them if it's as is. Because the moment you do, you now created damages for the seller. Because now the seller is affected by the buyer's disclosure that they didn't have to know or have before. And so moving forward, if the seller now goes to another transaction, let's just say hypothetically $100,000 transaction, And now there's $25,000 in damages that the seller never knew about, didn't have to disclose. He's at a loss of $25,000. That's true damages caused by that buyer by turning that over in an as-is deal. So it's not just
so there's ramifications.
There are.
I'm happy to hear this.
I mean, look, it's like
the reality is it never.
Who's going to litigate that, right? Like, what are you doing here? Like, it goes back to like I litigate half my business. I do transaction the other half. It's like I love the transactional part because there's two parties trying to get to that solution, whereas litigation you're trying to tear it all apart, right?
Yeah. Good stuff, Mark. Anything else?
No, I think we probably go on this for a while, but that was pretty good information for a tip. So I'm ready to wrap.
All right, let's do it. Who are we playing for?
All right, we're playing for 𝗬𝘃𝗲𝘀. 𝗬𝘃𝗲𝘀 bought a t-shirt off of �straight-up-chicago-investor.com merch store. So Kale, if myself or 𝗵𝘃 gets this question right, you'll get a $50 gift card brought to you by 𝗵𝘃 and 𝗤𝘃 Law.
All right, very good. And I think you guys will get this one. Mark, I know you're kind of a history buff. 𝗵𝘃, you're just a smart dude. Speaking of smart dude, University of Chicago grad, I believe, which is where our question's based here.
Oh,
All right. Who provided the initial funding for the University of Chicago and ultimately funded a total of $35 million, which is worth over $1 billion in today's, if you did the inflation calculation?
Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Look at you. I knew you were going to know
I need to answer that one. And they've got a nice...
Who was the first president of there? This is something I learned when I read the Rockefeller biography.
I do not know this.
William Rainey Harper, which is the community college out here in the suburbs, and the big college out here in the suburbs.
Oh, I actually knew that. Wait, didn't they want it to be like a liberal arts college, and the one guy wanted it to be total research, and the two of them were button heads, and then Rockefeller just came in and said, "Hey, guys, I got this."
Yeah. So
yeah. Harper,
all right, awesome. Well, Kale, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by 𝗤𝘃 Law. So, dude, we got it.
Nice.
This is 2 we filmed today, so we got both questions. So this is going to be a good day.
That was a great question.
Yeah,
nice.
Man, nice. I kind of knew you were going to get that one. We've talked about the Standard Oil Company multiple times. That's how dorky we are.
You guys should have asked about the football program, because there are a lot of little nuggets about who's the first.
We've done one of that because then they win the first
Heisman Trophy. Yep,
yep,
and undefeated against Notre Dame. And do you know who has University of Chicago's Big Ten charter?
Who took their charter? I don't know. I'm going to guess Northwestern. Weren't they the 11th team?
It's not Northwestern. It is a current Big Ten team, not in the state of Illinois.
Purdue.
Nope.
I'm just going to go down. Yeah, Wisconsin, Purdue, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State.
It is the Spartans.
Penn State. That makes sense. All right. Well, 𝗵𝘃, thanks for coming on here. However many times you've been on here, we appreciate you as always being a support.
Thank you for having us.
Tom, thank you. Listeners, if you want to be entered into the drawing to be part of the Chicago Fact, go to �straight-up-chicago-investor.com. You could enter. You could go to the merch store, buy something there, or you can leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes, and make sure you put your name on there, because I'll pull your name. Your name will go into the drawing then to be part of our Chicago Fact at the end of each show. So, 𝗵𝘃, thank you. Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.